Hello, today we're going to be making savoury muffins, and these are a really nice snack, an afternoon snack, or you can have them as an alternative type of breakfast. And in the muffins we're going to be having some cheese, a whole carrot and half a courgette, and that's going to be mixed in with some self-raising flour, some butter, 2 eggs, a little bit of milk and some baking powder. The equipment we're going to be using is a weighing scale, a bowl to add all the ingredients and mix it all up, grater, chopping board, a combination of different spoons, so big spoon, little spoon, a knife, a bowl to put your trimmings in, and we are going to be baking everything into a muffin tray lined with 12 muffin cases or cupcake cases, whatever you've got available really. And you might find that you end up with slightly different sized muffins, but that's fine. And so what we're going to start with first is just to prepare the ingredients, is to start with the grating, and let's get all of that out of the way first. I'm going to start by grating the courgette. I don't need all of that courgette. I need around 100 grams of courgette. It doesn't really matter though, if you go over or if you go under, you can change it up as you like really. But that's probably about 100 grams here, but I'm just going to weigh it just in case of the check. That's quite a little bit more than actually 100 grams, it's about 150. So I'll chop a little bit more off, so I'd say about that much. So I'm going to start grating that up. Remember to watch your fingers and your knuckles. So I finished grating the courgette and I'm now going to start on the carrot. I've washed the carrot and I've washed the courgette as well. I'm not going to bother to peel it. You can if you want to, but I don't think it makes much of a difference. So we're going to grate that whole carrot up as well. As you say, it was a kind of a medium-sized carrot. It wasn't like a really big fat carrot. So here are the grated courgette and carrot, and you can see now how healthy this savoury muffin is going to be with all these vegetables in. I'm going to do my cheese now. So this is about 100 grams cheddar cheese, and I quite like to use nice strong mature cheddar because it makes the muffin taste a little bit, well, I just prefer a strong kind of cheddar. You might prefer something else. You can actually put other cheeses in as well, I guess, if you wanted to, but cheddar works really well. So we have now grated the cheddar, and I'm trying not to grate my fingers in as well. And that's pretty much done. And the next thing we're going to do, now that all of our grated ingredients is ready, we don't need this grater anymore. Put this out of the way and move my chopping board out of the way as well. And I'm going to move on to the next part of the recipe, which is measuring the flour and also the butter. And what we're going to be doing with this is making breadcrumbs, okay? So we need 250 grams of self-raising flour. Now I have managed to find, I know it's very difficult to find the right kind of flour for anything at the moment, but I have managed to find some self-raising wholemeal flour, which I thought would add a little bit more nutrition into the recipe. And I'm going to be measuring 250 grams of this. Use a spoon if you find it easier to do that. And in fact I've gone over because I didn't use a spoon. So there you go, that is exactly 250. Put that away. And I've got here 150 grams of butter. So I'm going to just chop this up. So this is butter which is cold, so it's just come out of the fridge. You don't want butter that's warm and on the verge of melting. You want it still kind of cold from the fridge and quite solid. So I'm just going to kind of chop it up into little pieces in my bowl, and that will be added to my bowl of flour. And obviously you have to make sure that you have washed your hands well before you start this recipe, because you're going to really get your fingers in now. And we're going to make breadcrumbs by mixing together the flour and the butter. Now when you make breadcrumbs, it's really important that you don't use your entire hand. So you don't want to be using the palms of your hand, because the palms of your hand are much warmer than your fingertips and can kind of make the butter melt more quickly than you want it to, and you don't end up with breadcrumbs, you just end up with a bit of a mess. So you just have to be a little bit patient, and ideally actually you'll probably use a bigger bowl than this. I've got quite a small bowl. It will be easier to do it in a bigger bowl, and ideally when you're making breadcrumbs, what you want to be doing is kind of lifting, pinching together, and as you're doing it you'll find that the butter starts to break up into little pieces and spread out more evenly into the flour. And this will take you a few minutes. It's quite therapeutic. I quite enjoy doing it. So I'm going to do this for a couple of minutes. So now I've mixed up the flour and the butter, and this is what the breadcrumbs should look like. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of baking powder. Now I know it's difficult getting baking powder at the moment. If you can't find it, it doesn't matter. I'm really low. This is my last pot left and I've got hardly any left, so I'm going to have to start cooking without baking powder soon as well. I'm just going to mix that in, and in fact I do realise that I do have two smaller bowls, and I'm going to transfer everything into a slightly larger bowl. And actually it's worth me saying, what I didn't say to you earlier was that in fact I put the oven on before we started at 180 degrees centigrade, which is around gas mark 4, so that by the time this is all ready, the oven will be nice and hot at the right temperature. Okay, so I'm going to transfer my breadcrumb mixture into here. I've got more room to play with now, and at this point I'm going to add in all of the ingredients on my chopping board. So I'm going to add in the carrot and the courgette and the grated cheddar. Give that a little bit of a stir. Now if you wanted to, you could also add in some seasoning here. You can add in salt, you can add in pepper if you wanted to put any kind of spices in. Sort of mixed spice actually is quite nice in this as well, which I haven't got out, but I will get it out in a minute and add to the recipe. So if you've got mixed spice, you can use that too. And then you've got to add 2 eggs. So if you're confident, you can crack your eggs straight into the bowl, or else you can crack them into a separate bowl. And then if you get any eggshell in the bowl, then you can remove it. Give the eggs a little bit of a whisk. Transfer into the main bowl. And then you want about 75 mils of milk. Now, I kind of know what 75 mils looks like, but if you're not sure, you put everything back onto your weighing scale and you calibrate it to, and I can't see it without my glasses, so yeah, mils, it's on mils there, and you add in about 75 mils. Be careful that you don't go over. Okay. That's about 75. And the next bit is just mixing it all up together, really. Just give it a good mix. So I've given it all a good mix, and I'm going to add in a little bit of seasoning. So you want to add in about sort of half a teaspoon. And I like lots of black pepper. And I didn't find mixed spice, but I found allspice. So I'm going to put in, again, probably about half a teaspoon of that, but it's up to you what you like really. And give that a final good mix. And that is your muffin mixture all ready to put into the muffin cases and all ready to then put into the oven. So can you see the texture of it? It's quite sort of, I mean, it's not all too thick and clumpy, it's still quite moist looking, isn't it? And I find the easiest thing to, or implement to transfer into the muffin cases is a teaspoon and a knife. And a teaspoon seems to be quite a good size because you can kind of pile it up on the teaspoon like that. And if it's too small, it doesn't matter, you can just add a little bit more in. And then with the knife you can ease the mixture straight into the muffin tin or the muffin case. So there's not quite enough in there, but I'm going to go around and do all 12 first and then go around again and fill up where there's sort of half empty cases. So all 12 of my muffin cases are now full up, and I scraped out every last bit of the mixture from the bowl using a spatula. A spatula is a great way of getting all the extra bits, all the remaining bits out of the bowl, and it's just perfectly 12 muffin cases. And so now what you can do, you can put it in the oven just as it is, or you can add some other things on top to make it a little bit more nutritious. So if you wanted to, you can add a bit more grated cheese, sprinkle a bit more cheese on the top. What I quite like to do is put in some sprinkle, like seed sprinkle, which you can get from the supermarket, and I think I've got these from Holland and Barrett, and it's called an omega sprinkle, but it's got really nice things like sesame seeds and pumpkin seeds in it. So you can just sprinkle those over the top. So now that's ready to go in the oven. And I'll show you the finished result in about 20 minutes. Here are the finished savoury courgette, carrot and cheese muffins. And you can see the seed sprinkle that I've put on top. Most of them have already been eaten, I'm afraid, but this is what I have left. And please do try them. I'm sure you'll find them really delicious.